Good afternoon. I'm Courtney Graham with the Engagement Programs Department here at the Art Institute of Chicago. Welcome to today's member lecture on the occasion of Barbara Kruger's exhibition, Thinking of You, I Mean Me, I Mean You. We're so glad to have you joining us virtually. We hope that this digital format can offer a chance to stay connected to the Art Institute from home. This program is being recorded, so if you'd like to revisit it in the future, you'll be welcome to do so. We'll begin with a brief review of some of the features we'll be using today. This program will be shared in presentation mode, so we have turned off video and microphones for attendees. For optimal viewing, please select full screen mode under the view options in the top right corner of your screen. Throughout the presentation, you're invited to share questions through the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. We look forward to answering some of those at the end of the presentation. Closed captions are available and can be turned on via the controls at the bottom of the screen as well. If you encounter any technical difficulties during today's program, again, please let us know in the Q&A and we'll do our best to assist you. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Robin Farrell. Robin is an Associate Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art here at the Art Institute. Since joining the department in 2013, she has served on the curatorial teams for exhibitions including Kara Walker, Rise Up, Ye Mighty Race, Frances Stark, Intimism, Kimang Walahu Lair, In All My Wildest Dreams, and Andy Warhol, From A to B and Back Again. And she has organized projects with artists such as Andrea Fraser, Rodney McMillan, Martine Sims, Colleen Smith, Greg Bordowitz, and more. Robin is also a visiting lecturer at the School of the Art Institute, a moderator for the Screen to Screen series at the Gene Siskel Film Center, and serves as co-editor of the forthcoming debut issue of the museum's digital journal, Art Institute Review. Of course, Robin co-curated the exhibition, Thinking of You, I Mean Me, I Mean You, which we'll be hearing about today. With that, I will pass things over to Robin.
Thank you, Courtney. On behalf of the Art Institute, the Department of Modern and Contemporary Art, my co-curator, James Rondeau, I want to thank all of the Art Institute members and guests who are joining us today. It is my distinct pleasure to speak with you about Barbara Kruger and our exhibition, Thinking of You, I Mean Me, I Mean You. One of the most significant and visible artists of our time, Barbara Kruger is a curious consumer and critical observer of the ways in which images circulate through culture. For more than 4 decades, she has combined images with provocative text using direct address to expose and undermine the power dynamics of identity, desire, and consumerism. Kruger's work reflects how we are in our daily lives and holds a continuous presence in the cultural landscape. My work is about how we are to one another, the artist often says, which situates her work as the reflective mirror of the collective belief in doubt, kindness and cruelty, and humor and empathy inherent to the human condition. How we experience images and the way they shape cultural and central concerns are very important within Kruger's practice. Born in Newark, New Jersey in 1945, she attended the School of Art at Syracuse University and the Parsons School of Design in New York before accepting a position at Condé Nast in 1966. Part of the first generation to grow up with television, Kruger also considers her exposure to pop culture a major influence. Both her personal and media literacy and her time in art school aided Kruger as a page designer and picture editor at Mademoiselle and House Garden magazines, where she received firsthand experience in the conception, creation, and circulation of consumer culture, learning strategies that commanded attention within the economy of a page, and this continues to inform her designs today. Following her tenure at Condé Nast, Kruger worked as a freelance picture editor and graphic designer for magazines and books and held numerous teaching positions across the United States for the following decades, including full-time professorships at the University of California, San Diego and University of California, Los Angeles, where she recently retired this year. The meaning of Kruger's works is always contextual, informed by the specific site and moment of their presentation, always adapting to and experimenting with new technologies. Although best known for her black and white images superimposed with text, such as the image you see here, "We will not become what we mean to you" in the museum's collection, The artist for over 3 decades has presented her ideas in 3-dimensional form as well, including large-scale room wraps, installations on building facades, and multi-channel videos, such as the work you see on screen, A View of the Globe Shrinks from 2010, which is included in the exhibition. The urgency of Kruger's work as it migrates from printed surface to screen and from interior to exterior walls lies perhaps less in its graphic immediacy than in the ways it is continually replayed in the present. Thinking of You, I Mean Me, I Mean You is the artist's largest solo museum exhibition in the United States since her mid-career retrospective in 1999, organized by our own Ann Goldstein for MoCA in Los Angeles, and then traveled to Whitney in New York in 2000. Addressing the breadth of the artist's career while focusing on the last 20 years of production, the exhibition does not approach or follow her practice in a chronological manner. Instead, it confounds the conventional temporal unfolding of a career retrospective by looking at the philosophical and physical institutions that contain and construct our daily lives. With this exhibition, Kruger re-envisions the retrospective itself by rethinking, remaking, and replaying her work in the contemporary moment. In the artist's words, the exhibition attempts to be as open-ended as the everydayness of our lives. Designed for the cover of our exhibition catalog, Kruger's image seen at the far right features the show's title while also serving, in her words, as a logo for the exhibition. A play on the title of the 1999 retrospective, Thinking of You, and the November 2010 W Magazine cover, and seen in the center here, featuring the artist's signature text superimposed over a photo of Kim Kardashian. The phrase, according to Kruger, is about identity, ego, and the fluidity of shifting selves. When seeing these 3 images together, we get a sense of how Kruger produces new meaning with each iteration of her iconic texts and images. Created in close collaboration with the artist, the exhibition encompasses the full sweep of her 40+ year career. Unprecedented in scale, scope, and methodology, Thinking of You, I Mean Me, I Mean You is Kruger's most robust exhibition to date. Known for spatializing aspects of her practice, the artist was invited to incorporate our museum's architecture into the exhibition design. Kruger's art has taken over our campus, spanning the traditional exhibition space of Regenstein Hall and expanding beyond the gallery space to various sites throughout the campus and in and throughout the city. By engaging the museum in this way, the exhibition is posed to generate dialogues across artistic disciplines and curatorial divisions, prompting new questions about the organization and function of cultural institutions like our own. Included on these next slides are SketchUp views that demonstrate this radical strategy at the entrance to the exhibition. I want to just make a quick note that by SketchUp, I mean this is the design program we always use to lay out our exhibitions, but became incredibly important and essential over the last 18 months while most of us were working from home and not having access to the museum. So included here, we see an LED video titled I Shop, Therefore I Am, situated within the center of the narthex space. This is one of 5 new works in a series called Replays, in which Kruger samples her earlier work as source material, injecting each new moving image with contemporary wordplay across LED screens. In this case, Kruger's image moves from the original vinyl you see here of a hand holding a placard in the central frame until it forms, and then it disperses like with puzzle pieces, forming back together again. And once that image forms, the text changes. It's animated with each ka-ching of the sound of a cash register. Kruger also reprises a wallpaper installation from 2011 in this space, comprising the same hand card design of I Shop, Therefore I Am. She's added a digital collage of over 500 Google images that populate the landscape of our narthex. Kruger sourced these images while searching herself online. They are not images that are her own, but pilfered versions of her signature Futura bold, oblique, white on red text and image combinations. Kruger's appropriation of her own appropriated style raises questions about art and authenticity and authorship in the digital age, and also rings the alarm of and rate of proliferation of visual information we are exposed to every day. The pairing of these two works, the wallpaper of Googled images and the updated LED video, simultaneously replicates and parodies the strategies and maneuvers of commodity production and sale, propelling the artist's 30-year-old concept into an echo chamber that feels specific to the devices and the egos of the 21st century. Upon exiting the narthex, one officially enters Regenstein Hall and the exhibition. A visitor is greeted by one of the artist's most extraordinary room wraps from 2017. Titled Forever, the installation has had previous lives in Los Angeles, Berlin, and Seoul, South Korea, and features the words of Virginia Woolf and George Orwell. This is a stunning example and an actual installation image from the galleries, showing how Barbara Kruger has responded to and really enveloped the Art Institute's space. As I mentioned before, the premise of Thinking of You, our exhibition, is more of an anti-retrospective, which is composed of both iconic and well-known images, but engaging with newly produced works on the occasion of the exhibition. On screen is an example of a new vinyl work, a triptych from 2020, in which 3 works are included and installed in one space. Also included are the earliest examples of Kruger's work, her pay-stubs. Ranging from 1980 to 1992, these works provide fundamental insight into the artist's conceptual framework and creative process. Diminutive in size, these works use an analog technique for physically arranging a page's content with manual cut and paste. The pre-digital works, as the artist now calls them, shows influence from her career in editorial magazines, tackling monumental topics that serve as studies for large-scale works in the following decades, including her newest digital productions. Kruger then shifted to large format chromogenic and then digital prints in the following decades, in which she's probably most recognized. These iconic montages of images and texts offer seductive images and provocative phrases such as "who speaks, who is silent, truth, and too big to fail." The juxtaposition between historical examples with more recent work offers an unprecedented opportunity to reconsider the range of the artist's groundbreaking body of work and whose influence and vital presence in our culture is now indelible and whose voice remains resonant, courageous, and crucial. Here on screen are examples of the technological shift you see. If you could go back on that slide, please. Here you can see sort of the evolution of her technological process from the photo silk screen in the upper left to more recent digital prints. Of particular note are galleries in the exhibition in which the artist simultaneously reflects on the past and the present. Pictured here is an important example, a SketchUp that shows the artist's important large-scale works from the early 90s, installed alongside 4 of the newly animated replays. At center, we see an image that appears to be Kruger's acclaimed image from 1989, Your Body is a Battleground, but it is in fact another animated video of the iconic work. On the occasion of this exhibition, Kruger has animated Your Body is a Battleground with new associations for the 21st century. Displayed at the same dimensions as the 1989 vinyl seen at center here, but amplified by the latest LED technology, this 2019 iteration also features the same now universal image of protest. But just as the animated puzzle pieces align, the text starts to shift, moving through 10 phrases in Kruger's signature text. As you will see in the gallery, the video both retains the power of its original message and expands its trenchant cultural commentary, offering an array of declarations for the current fame-obsessed, social media-driven attention economy, even while many of our personal freedoms continue to remain at risk. The slide on screen I've shown here actually gives you a sense of also Barbara's reprisal and remaking of her work. All the way at the far left is the original image, how it was first used for the Women's March on Washington in 1989, moving to the vinyl I referenced earlier, a larger work from 1989 that is in the Broad collection. And finally, this is a digital image of the puzzled image that is on view in the galleries. Other new videos included in the exhibition begin with Untitled No Comment from 2020. This 10-minute multi-channel work explores the notion of being present and mediated in presence of digital existence. The work foregrounds the ways in which Kruger addresses and antagonizes structures of value and power. Combining her own writing with assorted visual and textual quotations, it reflects the power of digital media to construct who we are, who we fear, who we love, and how we look. Untitled Art Forum is a work that is dated 2016 to 2020. For this work, you see in the lower left, the original, which is a cover of Art Forum magazine from the summer of 2016, in which Kruger was invited to collaborate on a text with the then editor, Michelle Kuo. On the right, you see an installation SketchUp, which has a 2-channel screen reflecting the book design. And it quite literally animates Barbara's annotations as she is editing Kuo's text. Finally, the most recent projected work in the show is titled The Work is About. Dated 1979 and 2020, the work is installed as a single channel projection and scrolls through a host of topics that do not necessarily refer to Barbara's own work, but the work of art practice in general. The video tracks in part the underlying issues of Kruger's nearly 5-decade career in her signature white and red Futura bold text. The artist once again leans into appropriation, replaying her own work as variations of this text appeared as early as 1979 in an issue of Cover magazine, and then nearly 30 years later for her 2008 elevator shaft installation at LACMA in Los Angeles, untitled Shafted. There are also single channel videos on monitor screens installed within a space that also includes an original vinyl from 1994 and remade in 2017. With her new body of video work, including single and 2-channel animations, multi-channel projections, and other installations, Kruger employs multiple modes of address through visual and temporal strategies. These situate the viewer both in and outside of media. It blurs the roles of actor and witness within each installation. This approach elicits an overall sense of anticipation and readied attention with the viewer. With this series you see on screen, it features Barbara's white text on red monitor screens. The 3 works, Pledge, Will, and Vow, all originally made on vinyl in 1988, have been reprised in 2020 as Kruger rolls through traditional language of a final will and testament, marriage vows, and the Pledge of Allegiance. Once again, Kruger animates these new works from old forms, but in this case, she deconstructs and disrupts familiar phrasing with jarring adjustments. Installed together in the same gallery, the 3 flat screen works perform a temporal unfolding as 1, 2, and then 3 all play, and then simultaneously rewind together. This sort of implodes the oral senses and visual senses as well, and sort of collapses concepts of superiority and privilege through a cacophony of word and sound. Activated from original iterations that preceded them, the videos play with words that define us and our relationships to others and to culture. In addition to remaking her well-known work, Kruger is also looking at the accelerated ways in which images and words flow through culture, confronting the voyeurism and narcissism that defines our daily lives. This is exemplified in the artist's new installation, Untitled Selfie, in which Kruger has designed the gallery with walls as backdrops for visitors to take selfies with their smartphones, while surveillance cameras capture the actions and broadcast the footage elsewhere in the museum. But to avoid the all too frequent exploitation of bodies and their picturing, Kruger has added an entry text, which you see here on the left, that suggests it's up to the viewer's choice whether or not to enter the gallery and allow an image of themselves to be circulated. Kruger reprises the wall text from an earlier work of hers, what you see on the right, a cover design from May 1992 of Esquire magazine, overlaying her words on the portrait of radio personality Howard Stern. Here on the cover, you see, I hate myself and you love me for it. And then on the back cover, it says, I love myself and you hate me for it. Phrases also in this installation. Collaboratively designed with the artist and with the incredible cooperation of countless colleagues across AIC departments, this exhibition interrogates the specific cultural context of our museum as it transcends the traditional spaces that surround us. Picturing Greatness is one example of this incredible collaboration, as it includes a selection of works from the Department of Photography and Media within the Regenstein presentation. Kruger first explored the idea of what it means to look like an artist at MoMA in 1988, in which she was invited to curate a show and selected a series of images that were portraits of artists. She's reprised this work here at the Art Institute, having to rewrite the text because in our collection, we have more women and artists of color than previously shown the work in New York in 1988. Outside of Regenstein Hall, visitors will encounter Barbara's work in several collection galleries. Here is an overview image of a 1997 fiberglass statue, Justice. And this shows a departure of Barbara's work in the late 90s, where she began to create a group of fiberglass sculptures of key figures in compromising poses. In doing so, she attempted to address the unexamined constructions of history and the problematic place of public commemorative monuments, questioning who is honored and why. Justice depicts notorious American lawyer Roy Cohn wearing heels and draped in an American flag while kissing former director of the Federal Investigation Bureau, J. Edgar Hoover. Kruger chose an intimate embrace that stands in contrast to her subjects' political personas and their homophobic, racist, and anti-democratic policies, a choice the artist described as, quote, trying to break down the sanctity around the rallying calls for justice and family and dealing with the complex contradictions of public and private lives. Kruger classicized the life-size figures, blowing them up using a bright white finish. In placing Justice among the neoclassical works in the gallery, the American Sculpture Court, the artist draws a connection between the virtuous expressions of our nation's past and the statue, which questions traditional commemorations. Other galleries that are engaged include Ancient and Byzantium and a rug in architecture and design. On the left, you'll see within the galleries a monitor that shows a series of vignettes from 1996. These are titled Public Service Announcements that Barbara produced while in residency at the Wexner Art Center, the famed film and video center in which she underwent training in filmmaking and produced these works. And this video is shown here in the Ancient and Byzantium galleries, and then also in the stairwell outside the grand staircase. To the right is a rug that is installed within the Pass Forward collection presentation of the Architecture and Design galleries. And this shows a collaboration that Barbara did for a rug in the early 1990s. Other public spaces include Griffin Court, which you see here. And in this next slide, you see that Barbara has once again reprised the work from an earlier iteration, untitled Blind Idealism, which is adapted from the prose of the psychiatrist and political philosopher Frantz Fanon. Modifying Fanon's original phrase, blind idealism is reactionary, Kruger's additional adjectives address the enduring necessity of responding to one's context, environmental, political, and societal. The artist's sight for this urgent message transfers it from textual page to a physical institutional space. Like many of Kruger's texts, this too has appeared in many other public forums. And as you see on the slide, it was in the High Line a few years ago. Other public sites within the museum campus include the Balcony Cafe, seen at the right, and then the ticketing wall at Michigan Avenue. The West Box in the Modern Wing windows, and the Alsdorf windows seen at the bridge here above Metra, as well as the Monroe Wall. And here we have a selection of merchandise that is included in the store, one of many other sites that Barbara has interrogated and intervened within the museum. You'll see other works, as I mentioned, in the grand staircase, the stairwell leading up to Rice, as well as sound works and select spaces of elevators in the museum. Here's an image of the facade and windows of Michigan Avenue, and her work will spill out into the city. Here's examples from a Lake Street billboard and the Sullivan Center on Monroe, as well as a new video commission with Art on the Mart that actually launches this evening at 7:30 p.m. This is a public opportunity for everyone to see Barbara's new work across the city landscape, and it will run nightly through Thanksgiving. I have a slide here that shows a PDF of a map and the visitor's guide. And I wanted to just call out another wonderful collaboration with colleagues across the museum in an extraordinary effort to ensure that everyone can really access Barbara's work. They can physically find it because we have little green markers on the map so that one can actually seek out where you might find a Kruger installation outside Regenstein Hall. But I also wanted to use this opportunity to mention other accessibility materials that we've worked to provide for the exhibition. Not only do we have this map, but there are sound descriptions for all of the single channel works listed on the object labels throughout the museum. And we also have a visual description and audio descriptions available online, which we worked with artist Andy Slater on and are very excited to share with all of you. Barbara Kruger is an artist of world renown, but the exhibition also presents an opportunity to call attention to her important connections to our city. Kruger recalls her years in Chicago fondly as a visiting artist at the School of the Art Institute in 1975 and 1979, as well as her early exhibitions at the Rona Hoffman Gallery from the mid-1980s and early 1990s. Fittingly, with Thinking of You, I Mean Me, I Mean You, the artist's presence will spill beyond our campus into the city that has played a significant role in her career, making this an exceptional moment to welcome an artist of our time to the museum. I am truly honored to have had the extraordinary opportunity to collaborate with the support of our museum and the vision of Barbara Kruger. A huge thanks to her. And throughout the process, I have been energized by all of our incredible efforts and amongst colleagues at the museum, including, of course, my co-curator, James Rondeau, and Ann Goldstein, Deputy Director and Chair, Curator of Modern Contemporary Art, who has a long-standing commitment to Kruger's work and informed the development of this exhibition. And of course, so many members of every department in the museum that really brought this to life over our 4-year planning period. So with that, I want to thank all of you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you soon. I also want to have a thank you to Kathy Raycan, our captioner, Devin Davis, who is working the tech here, and Courtney Graham. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Robin. That was a wonderful talk, and I know that folks are certainly going to be looking forward to visiting the exhibition. So we can definitely jump into some questions. First question for you. You talked a little about the 4-year planning process. How was the planning and execution of this momentous exhibition affected by the pandemic? Can you talk a little bit about some of the changes that had to be made?
Yes, well, I would say first and foremost, a major change was the date of the exhibition. We were supposed to open in November 2020, and of course we are now opening in September 2021. And there was actually another date change somewhere in between there as well. So I would say, of course, like just sort of having to adjust and sort of be very nimble and flexible with what it meant to, think about how we were preparing and ordering equipment and where we might store it over a long period of time, how we might continue to think through the design in the spaces without having access to those spaces. I will say that luckily we, began planning the show as early as, late 2017. And we were able to welcome Barbara more than a few times to the museum before the pandemic hit. And that was really important, as it's such an essential part of her practice to sort of experience space so that she's able to sort of, work in space. So upon visiting, she kind of knew the layout that she wanted and those spaces that she wanted to experiment and work in. And we developed our design for Regenstein early on. Thankfully, we didn't have to adjust our designs too much, but we are very grateful that a lot of the measurements that needed to take place and planning for the large scale vinyls really were already set, thankfully, by March 2020. So since then, we, of course, had a little extra time to plan the show, which was nice, but I know we were all very anxious to open it this month. And I'd say that it also affected catalog production a little bit, and we made a very special time-stamped note in the catalog to sort of, say we're going to press in October 2020. This is a year after we thought the show would open, and we sort of, are unsure what the future holds. So, so it's sort of a really wonderful way to really track the time span of the show.
Thank you, Robin. A somewhat related question, the exhibition obviously has some really site-specific works and elements to it. How will you and Barbara and the other curators involved present the exhibition differently in Chicago versus where it will be presented at LACMA and MoMA? Can you talk a little about that?
Yes. So we have a set checklist, and majority of that checklist with loans and physical objects will go to LACMA in Los Angeles. And then as Barbara approached the site here in Chicago, it's very much how she will approach installing work in Los Angeles. She's she lives in Los Angeles and New York, so she's very familiar with LACMA and their campus, and so she will do a lot of site-specific vinyls as well. So there won't be sort of a Griffin Court at LACMA because they don't have a Griffin Court, but there will be something maybe akin to that, an intervention in a main thoroughfare. So the site-specific work is what it is. It's site-specific. So that will definitely change. The core checklist will more or less stay the same. And then at MoMA, she'll be doing a special commission there as well.
Great, thank you. Wondering a little bit about Barbara's process, and if you could talk a little bit about the fabrication of such grand pieces and whether she works with a team of studio assistants or what her process is generally like.
Well, I'll first say that it's, hard to believe, but incredibly, Barbara works on her own. She does not have studio assistants. She never has. Of course, she works with various folks that, help with editing video and that sort of thing. But Barbara makes all the work herself. And as I mentioned in the talk, the trajectory of her practice has adapted and changed with each of the, evolution of technology. So for example, her paste ups were sort of literally cutting and pasting and putting work together on a small scale. And then she moved to larger photographic silkscreen works. And then of course, when digital became the norm, she's moved into digital work. And so you sort of are able to track that process throughout the exhibition in sort of a really beautiful nonlinear way. And as far as the large scale vinyls, Barbara works with sort of a handful of folks throughout the world because she's exhibited throughout the globe and has very trusted colleagues that she works with. We worked with a very trusted and wonderful person out on the East Coast in his company. And he had an incredible crew here in Chicago that executed everything seamlessly. So we're very, very grateful that she already had sort of that set team. So although she does do all the work on her own, of course, for these large scale and very complex technological things, there are experts that she does work with who helped make this show brilliant.
Thank you. You touched on the catalog a little bit in the first question, but wondering if you could say a little bit more about some of the content or some of the special elements. I know that, it's been on a long journey, like you said, started a long time ago.
Right. So, I mean, I actually have the catalog here, which I can kind of show everybody. It's beautifully designed by Barbara and along with InfoCo, and was actually produced by our colleagues at LACMA with, of course, the input with the curators and everyone involved in the project. And there are essays by all the curators involved, as well as reprinting of various texts that Barbara has read over the years, has included in syllabus for school, but are not texts actually about her work. So there's really sort of this wonderful pedagogical element to reading in the book, in addition to sort of a beautiful, full color plate list of images and new scholarship on her work. And included, it also sort of tracks our own process, where there's a lot of these SketchUp images that I included in the presentation because it's really so important within the process of producing the exhibition.
Thank you, Robin. I think we have one more question, and it's a great one. What kind of impression or impact would you like to see guests and members leave with after visiting the exhibition?
I think a couple of things. I hope that sort of the epic expanse of the show really welcomes people back. I know that everyone has been at their own adjusting levels of, being in public spaces over the last few months, and this is truly a celebration of one of the most important artists of our time. But it's also, I think, a moment for us as the Art Institute and Chicago community to celebrate and coming together. So I think that everyone will be energized, and of course, really, thinking about, as Barbara would say, how we are to one another, and taking that forward with them once they leave the museum and see her work throughout the city landscape.
Absolutely. Thanks, Robin. It's certainly the perfect show to bring everyone back to the museum space and dive into all the architecture of the spaces that we've been missing. So thank you. Thank you again, Robin, for such a wonderful talk, and to our members for joining us this afternoon. For more information on upcoming virtual events, please visit us online at artic.edu and look for our monthly e-news in your inboxes. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.